All right, you guys, so let's go ahead and get started. First thing we're going to do, if you choose to do so, you can outline your tree. By outlining, I mean literally Sharpie your tree. You do not have to, it's not required, but I will tell you that it does help me see my lines afterwards. But the problem with Sharpie is you cannot remove any of the lines. So if you're nervous about sharpening it, maybe practice on a sheet of paper beforehand. The lines are already drawn for you. It's just a matter of following them. What I tell my little kids, and this helps the bigger kids too, is pretend this is your choo-choo train. Your lines are your tracks. Do not let your train go off the tracks. Stay on those tracks. Those lines are there for a reason. So you can go through and outline all of them. If you'd like to add additional lines, you're welcome to. If by chance you go off of a line, go with it. You don't want wonky looking swirls. So let's say right here I went, oh no, what do? Turn it into a swirl. Make it look like you meant to do it. There's no real accidents in art. It's all art. There's no mess ups. There's no mistakes. Art is art. Art is what you make it. It's not a wrong way to do it. No one is going to tell you the way that you do your art is wrong. Okay, so to start with, we have our basic design going on. Now, I'm going to start off with a very basic color of blue. I'm going to open up one of my blues gently. And I don't want such a vivid blue. I think I want it a little bit more toned down. So I'm going to take this paintbrush. Try not to get paint past the barrel here. Really, halfway is as deep as you really want that paint to go. Because if paint gets up into that barrel, no matter how hard you try, paint's going to stay up there no matter how much you wash it. And what that means is it's going to rot up there. It's going to rot up into your bristles and they're going to start falling out. Have you ever painted with a paintbrush where the bristles start falling out and it ruins all your paint? That's because the bristles are rotted. They're falling out. So be gentle with your brush. Take care of your supplies and you can use them for years. So I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to dip it into my blue paint, not quite halfway. And I'm going to come over to my white here. I've only filled it, not even halfway. I'm going to take this blue. And yes, I know that it's tempera paint mixing with acrylic paint. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to stir it really well. I'm going to try not to over mix it where it's going all over the palette. We don't want that. That's a mess. So there we go. We have a pretty decent little blue here. So then what we want to do is get that blue off of this brush. So you see I cleaned off most of it. I'm going to stick it in my water. Now I'm going to take my sponge, dip it in that paint, and I'm going to start dragging it all over. Make sure you get these sides, the whole painting. You don't want any chunks or bumps or blobs, or as I call it in my art studio, boogers. You don't want any paint boogers. You just want nice, thinned out paint. Notice what I'm doing here. Dragging my paintbrush or my sponge across it nice and neatly, off the edge, off the edge, off the edge. Trying to get nice, smooth background. What do I do here? Go ahead and fill it. It's going to get painted over anyway, but that's okay. Now this is a canvas. It is just wood wrapped in fabric. I'm sure you looked at it already. As you can see, it is wood wrapped in fabric. Notice that the sides are not painted. That means paint them. If you paint your sides, you do not have to frame your artwork. It can go straight on your wall. It's called gallery wrapping, and it's a really cool thing. It's a new trend that most artists are doing. Frames are expensive. They really are. So anything you can do to try and avoid having to frame art, the better. Now, of course, there's going to be a masterpiece here and there that mom or dad are going to be like, oh my God, I'm framing that. And it's going to go over the mantle and everybody's going to love it. And that's awesome. But it's not necessary for all of your paintings. So there we go. Boom. All painted. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and set my brush aside. Now, before I do that, you're going to notice that I've really abused my sponge brushes. There's a little bit of a crack here. It's on both sides. If I dipped it in yellow, I would make a green because yellow and blue make green. So I really can't use this for too much, but I think I might save it on the side. Now, yes, it's probably going to start drying while we're painting, but I can still use it a little bit because I think I'm going to use this for my grass at the bottom. Since yellow and blue make green, I can use this for that coloring. So I'm going to close up my paint, which I didn't do earlier. You really need to always make sure your paints are closed and you keep a nice, neat, and clean workspace. Otherwise, you get accidents. Honestly, I'm the messiest of artists. As you can tell, I'm already painted. So, and art is messy, and that's fine. It's totally fine. But you don't want to be spilling all over mom's countertops. All right. So I'm going back to my brush here that I had just set in water. I'm not cleaning it. You can see that I didn't clean it because it's still blue. I'm just going to take that water off of it. Notice, gentle. I'm not doing this. If you do this, you're going to give your brush a bad hair day. It's going to look like me in the morning, and trust me, that's not pretty. So I'm going to be gentle. Now I'm also not going to squeeze real tight and pull because that's going to pull the bristles out. You just want to be gentle. Gentle, gentle. So I'm going to go ahead and dip in my yellow and put a little bit of yellow on there, a little bit of green. I'm going to tap those on. Maybe touch in a little of that blue here. I'm just tapping. And I'm only sticking to the bottom right now. Tap, tap, tap. I'll grab a little more green. There's not a race to finishing a painting. The great masters of, the olden days, the Italian Renaissance masters like Leonardo da Vinci and Raphael, they would take years to paint. So taking 30 minutes to do this painting or 45 minutes or whatever it takes us to paint this sucker is nothing compared to what they do. So, as one of my students say, it's not a race, so slow down and learn something. Spread it out. Take your time. You notice every time I dip, I'm dipping in either green or yellow, whichever one I did not dip in last. So that was green. So now I'm going to do a little yellow. I'll do a little bit more green. But you'll also notice that I have no blobs. I am spreading this paint out super duper thin. Okay, so there we go. Now, the other thing we want to do are your sides. But I'm not doing a big long brush stroke. I'm tapping it still. But when you get to your land line, which is this land line here, land line is basically, it's called a horizon line. When you get to where the sky and the land, or the sky and the water, if it's an ocean scene or, sea scene, where they meet, that is your horizon line. That's where the sun comes up and goes down. So when you get to that horizon line, which would be right here, I'm going to stop. Because I don't want my grass going up into my sky. That would look funny. It would be like a grassy sky. That's not right. Alright, so I have done my grass. And I have done a pretty decent job Look at that. I got some green right on my sky. All right. Once again, close up shop on all these different supplies. Close it up. Close it up. Okay. And I'm going to pause this video for a minute so you can continue working on your grass. And when you're done, I want you to put your brush in your water. Make sure all your supplies are closed up for the next step. All right, so go ahead and get started.